Nice. It's beautiful. The control of the dynamics is not just a matter of volume. That would be one thing, but it's the way that he's changing the volume is with like getting a little breathy, right? And that's going to make it lighter. And then the way he's tilting the thyroid cartilage to get that vibrato and that lush sound. And this is this is the thyroid cartilage, and what you see there's the cricothyroid muscle, which tilts that, and that gives a much more lush sound because the vocal folds are connected to this. So when it goes down, it stretches it out, and so in addition to going down, which is going to deepen the tone, it allows for more air pressure to build up, which gives it a little bit more power. And so he's navigating that. He's navigating it very, very well to achieve the benefits of the lushness, but also maintaining a height of the larynx to give the lightness that we're hearing. It's wonderful. Right? Breathy and then a little vibrato on the end there. Oh, that camera's a little nauseating. Nice. So this is a belt. Shocker, right? But listen to the build-up. Oh, yeah. That's so good. Belting is a heck of a lot more reliable than like classical singing and stuff like that. But it can be very, very harmful if done incorrectly. And what I want to point out here is, though that sounds incredibly powerful, and it is, the breath is incredibly gentle and precise. A lot of people confuse belting for just like shouting. If you're shouting, you're going to injure yourself and you're not going to be belting for very long. So what he's doing here is he's making those folds fat. He's getting the belt going, but look at the posture. Look at the posture. Yes. Yes. See, this is what I'm talking about. A lot of times I say falsetto and people like lose their mind. They have a conniption. This is objectively beautiful. That like he's just hitting those high notes like it doesn't matter. He's going up there. It's powerful. It's passionate, but he's a musician, right? He's a musician. Boom. Beautiful. This is one of my favorite songs. I played this at my wedding for my wife. Come on, camera guy, what are you doing? So incredible. Oh, yes. So what makes this, oh God, it's so nice. So when you belt, your folds are really fat, okay? So, and this happens because of what's called a cricoid tilt. So where this is the cricothyroid that's going to tilt the thyroid cartilage, that little Adam's apple piece of your throat. There we go. That's not a great image of it. But this is the muscle that is responsible for tilting. Can I see it? Can I have it? Do you have it? And oh boy. Okay. So this is the cricoid cartilage. It's at the base of the larynx. There's some contention about, how it tilts or if it tilts. But this is, for the most part, what people associate with belting. You'll see that the let me get the real quick. Let me get something up. Okay, so yeah, so these are the vocal folds right here. These two little fleshy bits, and when this tilts, presumably, right this way, the folds get fatter. Right? They get fatter and they get closer together. And the reason why this is impressive is not only is this like how you belt, but it's also the fact that he's doing that and then immediately going into vocal chicanery, right? Runs, right? And so to do a run, you actually need to have very small folds because they become more agile. So it's very, very tricky to go into a belt and then to be immediately able to do, melismas. Wow. Okay. Man, I got this. I am, on top of my stuff. Like and subscribe, and maybe I'll remember the words that I'm speaking. Probably not. Beautiful. The dynamic control is amazing. It's astounding. Okay, okay. Oh my god. Get it. Okay. Yes! Yes! Okay, okay, pianists can get it too. All right. Okay, okay, a little low, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, just beautiful. Using the whole instrument, the whole thing. Falsetto, going low, belting, a little classical with the thyroid tilt. I mean, it's just exceptional singing. And the heart and the phrasing behind this, it's incredible. And then the pianist coming in. Like, that's rude. Like, how am I supposed to feel confident in myself when y'all are so much better than me? I mean, this is my sad face. There's a bit of a channel update that's going to happen, kind of a big one. I am going to be, starting on June 2nd, I will be streaming on twitch.tv, where I do these live stream reacts, well, live. And it's going to be every Thursday and Saturday at 12 p.m. PST. I really should have added an S to the Saturday, shouldn't I? I mean, like, it's just really good. This is something that recently a student submitted a recording and wanted some feedback. The singing was fine. The technique was fine. The mix was fine. But the phrasing was repetitive. The melody line here doesn't necessarily change that much. There are embellishments. But whether or not you put embellishments, it's important that every phrase be specific and has its own unique kind of thing. Highly recommend just going phrase by phrase and exploring with the words what that phrase can do, because then you get something that's really captivating, I think, and Avery Wilson, I think, is really delivering that here.
Last night I saw you standing, I started pretending.
Specifically what we're seeing here is a basic A-B phrase, call and response, right? So let's call the call and response and see the differences.
Last night I saw you standing.
That low end of that phrase, he gives a little bit more oomph, right? The response gets the priority. Next phrase.
I started pretending that I knew you.
Right? Very, very different, very specific.
You knew me too. And just like a Romeo, you were too shy, but you were the only cause so was I. And I dreamed of you ever since.
Now, this is important here. The phrasing, a lot of people stop at the high note, right? They get the high note, high five, good job. They think it's over. That's not good enough. So the reason why he's not punching that high note, the word is I. If you start punching pronouns, you sound like an you sound like an a-hole. So for example, when I you, right, starts to sound a little bit aggressive. There are instances where punching pronouns are okay. Not in this one. This is a love song, right?
But you were the only cause, so was I. And I dreamed of you ever since. And how I built up my confidence.
Right? This man is in it. This man is using the words. It's beautiful. So I actually have another student, different than the one I mentioned before, who prioritizes this specifically. So what he's doing that's really important here is that he's extremely deliberately light for these phrases, right? You can only bring as much weight, for lack of a better term, as you can, as the phrase allows for, okay? So we're going to take a look real quick at the vocal folds. There we go. Let me see. Boop. There we go. Okay. So these are your vocal folds. The mistake a lot of people make is that they fatten these things too much as they go up high. Now, it is actually important to fatten them as you go lower. And that's something a lot of people who prioritize just going high end up with, a higher larynx, end up with thinner folds, and that's fine. That works really well for what we just heard, the ooh, ooh,
get some work. But the doing that sort of a style of like high and doing all that running, you know, and fluttery stuff, this is really how you do it. You really thin these things, because the thinner they are, the more easily they are moved, right? And so when you do a run and they go on, they like do this like larynx gymnastics thing, which, you know, is a lot. So yeah, as they move around a lot like that, it's best to have them thin. But when you get into your low, you can lower the larynx, right? So if you want to feel what that's like, you can actually just take an inhale right now. Like a nice, full, like, oh, what a sigh of relief, right? And that's going to both retract your false folds and lower the larynx, so it's going to give you a lot of juice. So that's what he's doing over here.
What was I? And I dreamed of you ever since.
Right? And so he's, not only is he doing that, thickening the folds on the bottom more, he is giving more air. Okay? Now this is how you fatten the folds. I don't have a piece of paper, but if you take two pieces of paper and you blow through them, they come together. This is what is called the Bernoulli effect, right? This is how the folds largely come together. Now they're separate, you put air through them, they come together. So if you're having a problem with your low end, you can actually do, and people are going to be like, well, you know, I know that exercise, you know, I can do it, it's no big deal. But it is. So the lip trill, people use that thing wrong all the time. What does it do? In addition to helping you with like a little bit more back pressure, so it's a little bit easier to sing the notes, what it also does is it gives you a visual. And so you have a reference, and you're not hearing it, so you don't judge the sound, okay? Because that'll mess you up when you think you're like, oh, let me manipulate my sound in order to get what I want. Like, none of that, okay? Be kinesthetically aware. Feel how the body is working with it, right? The more air you want, that's on the lower end. You need a little bit more air on the lower end. So you use the lip trill as a little bit of a reference. Right? And that's kind of the phrase that he's giving there. But then when he goes up, right here. Right. Beautiful. Opposite is true. Higher notes take less air, right? If the vocal folds come together through air and you put a lot of air and they get thicker, well, the inverse is true. You put just enough air so that they come together just enough and they're a little bit more thin, right? There are other ways of thinning out the folds. We're not going to talk about that. So what he's doing is he's doing the opposite. So you can still use the lip trill for that. And I sleep with you every night. Right? A little different. So that's going to give you those different weights. And this again goes to being very specific phrase by phrase. Because you can't, in these very high passages, do what he was doing in the beginning. So that's why it's very important to be specific with each and every phrase and work on your breath with each and every phrase. Because, it sounds good.
I started to write you letters, but I wanted to be more clever. I wanted to get down and sweet.
Okay, squad.
Think
Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. You know what? This is why this is so good. So what he is doing here, it's the same thing we talked about, but it's just done extremely, extremely well. There are additional factors, and I said I wasn't going to talk about them earlier. I'll talk about them now. So what we have here is the ability to tilt certain cartilages, plural for cartilage. What we have is the ability to tilt these things. Okay? So as far as most people, for the most part, most people believe this to be true. It's not exactly certain. But the theory is that the cricoid cartilage tilts up, which puts the folds back, right? It brings the larynx kind of at this angle, right? And so because of that, the vocal folds then become thinner, right? Start doing that. What that does is it fattens the folds and kind of keeps them fat. And so that's how you end up belting. Now, the problem with doing that is that if you put too much air behind it, listen, they're already thick. They're already thick. So if you put too much effort behind them, they really kind of do this, and then boom. And then you don't do that with a wedding ring, but it'll give you a vocal hemorrhage. So you have to be careful with that stuff. Because the folds are already thick, use less air. Okay? So we're talking about air. We're talking about runs. We're talking about lightening the folds. We're talking about thickening the folds, right? So the other part of this is that he's getting that sweet, sweet vibrato and warmth. So this is the thyroid cartilage. Now, as the thyroid cartilage tilts, something else happens, right? The folds get stretched this way, so they thin out. But because they're getting stretched, it's like a tight rubber band, right? So a lot of air pressure still builds up behind them, right? So you get a more powerful sound. This also creates vibrato. This also warms up the tone. And it warms up the tone because... Where am I with this mouse? There we go. It warms up the tone because this is kind of having an effect where it slightly lowers the larynx, right? Here are your folds, then they start going down here, right? So this means that because this little part of your vocal tract is longer, you're going to emphasize lower frequencies, which is interesting because as powerful as belts are, whoa, I don't know what I just did. There we go. I'm an expert. I'm professional. So contrary to the thyroid cartilage, the cricoid cartilage kind of goes up a little bit. So belts are very powerful, but they're actually just powerful in the high end. They don't have as much kind of like low lusciousness as the thyroid cartilage tilt. So these are all different flavors, right? These are all different flavors, and this man is making a stew, okay? And it's brilliant. And so if you want to learn how to do this, you can do all of these things individually. You learn to isolate them. If you're like me, I needed to do that personally. But then you can put them together in different ways to get different aspects of the singing. And again, you do it phrase by phrase. And so it seems complicated and seems difficult. And, you know, it is difficult to do what he's doing. I mean, this is really, really high level singing. But to do this, you just go phrase by phrase and test and play with what you can and can't do, right? Because when this is why you have to separate them. You can work on these things in isolation, right? I'm going to tilt my larynx, I'm going to tilt my cricoid, I'm going to belt, I'm going to do a run. And then when you actually go to practice the music, you only think about those things if you go with a phrase and it's not working. It's like, okay, well, let me go back to the physical execution of this. When you're making music, you can't do that. So leave the technical crud to the practice room, okay? Because this man is in it. Nice. That's awesome.
Nice. That always gets me. That always gets me. When someone's doing a phrase and it's like it's rhythm and, you know, that's beautiful legato, and then they just stop. And they stop perfectly on time. This is another thing, is that the rhythm is key. And we all need to work on this. This man is snapping his fingers. He feels the pulse of the rhythm. And that is where he is on that all the time, despite the runs, despite all the complexity. He's not losing time, right? This is something. This is really, really important. And I said this a little bit already, but I want to bring emphasis to it. When you go for a high note, you have to let your larynx go up, if only a little bit. And that's even true for opera. Okay, so let's take a shot of the voice as I do this. Right, this is gonna be tough to show this angle, but also, like, you know, have good posture. So here we go. Here's the shot. Come un det un sol, toma le mia bene consolar. Right? So you can kind of see the motion of it. Now, it's not necessarily that I'm planning, okay, here's the position of the larynx. Here it is. That's not what I'm doing. I'm letting it go. Right? And that's where, again, the lip trill will, if you don't think about it and you let it go and you let it move and you're not judging the sound, that can help inform you as to, you know, letting the larynx move and not getting in the way of doing that just for an aesthetic that you want to force yourself to have. Nice. That's just awesome. That's so good. Yeah. I love the support of the audience. That kind of makes it a little bit
I wanna know your name, your name, your name. I wanna know your name, your name, your name. I wanna know your name, your name, your name. I wanna know your name, your name. I wanna know your name, your name.
musically that's pretty tricky, right? So it's not necessarily that they modulated to a different key, but they're using chords that are not necessarily in the key, right? And that's not an outrageous concept, right? If you like, it can be difficult to navigate, but that happens a lot, right? 5 of 5, which would be if we're in the key of C. So that would be something like this, all right? So we're starting on a 1 chord, and then we're gonna go to there we go. We're gonna go to D major, which is here. Yes, I got it. Oh, there we go. Okay. Right, so we're here to here, and then we go to 5. Yeah, that's right. So, you know, that's something that exists like pretty readily in a lot of music. And so you can change chords, also the tonality of it, right? So if I go and then I go to 4, right? What we can do here is switch 4 to a minor. And then in the Beyonce's recent thing, she did this. I want to get a cool voicing here. Right? So you can change to like G minor and all this other stuff, even when you're in a key. Particularly, you know, I think we've gotten used to that. But what's particularly nice about it is they're also using extended harmony, right? So if you have, let's say, C minor, what they're doing is they're doing C minor 9, but they're doing a 9th chord, right? Which is just stacking more thirds on top of each other.
Okay.
Right? So that I think is the 505. I'm not sure, but and he's on the 9th of the chord there. So that's like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Right? That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's quite I mean, like it's just really good. It's really, really, really stellar.